mention that I'm also doing another panel discussion that's more specific to the community regional planning grants that I'm going to address in a few moments tomorrow morning. So if you want to hear more specifics about affordable housing linkages to those grants and some of the other opportunities, please attend that session. By the way, great work on organizing this session, this overall conference. The content of the agenda, I think, is some of the most impressive that I've seen in a long time. So I salute the board and those who worked very diligently to pull this together. I'm also pleased to be here this afternoon with two of my colleagues. One I've known for a long time, Terry Rosenbeck, as he worked for the city of Denver a number of years ago, and someone I've just gotten to know in the last year, but Lynn Richards is a great contributor to our federal partnership on sustainable communities. I'm going to speak a little bit about the HUD role in the federal partnership. Lynn covered the EPA piece. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that I believe we have overcome, some still ahead of us, as well as some of the successes in the year 2010, because that was kind of our flagship year. That was the year that this concept of bringing these three agencies together really took form under the leadership of our three respective cabinet members. So HUD's role in the Sustainable Communities Partnership was to stimulate more integrated planning to guide state, metropolitan, and local investment in land use, transportation, and housing, as well as to challenge localities to undertake zoning and land use reforms to support more inclusive, sustainable communities. Very much akin to, I think, the goals of this particular organization. And that's why I think we need to have you as supporters as we go forward. HUD in particular funded over $100 million in regional planning grants, $40 million in community challenge grants, and $10 million in HUD, DOT, and EPA research efforts and grants. But all of that didn't come easily. Before that, in many ways, there was a pre-NOFA activity. And this gave some heartburn to the Office of Budget Management in Washington when Secretary Donovan and his senior lieutenant said, we want to go out into the communities of the nation, the urban areas, the metropolitan regions, and ask elected officials, stakeholders, and other partners of HUD what we should be thinking about doing in our regional planning grant process. Never done before. So it was, as I've learned as an appointee, doing things for the first time in the federal government is not easy. But that was accomplished. I think there was a 6-city tour done early last year, late the previous year, that comments and information that was gathered, many of you probably attended those sessions, was actually taken to heart and actually put into the actual NOFA that came out last summer on the regional sustainable planning grants and the challenge grants. There was also a historic attempt, and actually succeeded, in putting together a joint NOFA with the Department of Transportation. That was the benchmark, and as Lynn just alluded to, now the challenge is the EPA and HUD are working together on our capacity building grants that were always intended to follow the regional planning grant process. We're a little behind schedule, but we're getting there. In addition, over the course of the summer, HUD recruited and nominated and selected over 80 HUD employees who have a passion and a commitment to sustainable communities throughout the nation. Not just folks that, that work in the field policy management arena that I supervise directly in this 6-state region, but from other program areas throughout the HUD organization. In fact, one of those individuals is here attending this conference, Shane Brady. But these individuals are asked to do some perform leadership roles in working with local communities on sustainable community planning and activities, in addition to their regular duties. So now we have a cadre of over 80 individuals around the nation that are working on sustainable community efforts in their local jurisdictions, in their local regions on this effort. And I think this is fairly impressive, but I also think that the HUD relationship with the partnership helped leverage many national foundations to come to the table and support our sustainable community efforts, either funding programs that are national program efforts directly, or supporting some of the capacity building needs in regions throughout And this is a collaborative of organizations known as Living Cities that are active. Some of the members are the Ford, Rockefeller, Kellogg, Andy Casey, many other national foundations. We've been able to leverage that relationship and partnership to get more dollars put into these communities that are not just public federal government dollars. Let me talk a little bit about the competition associated with the regional planning grants. More than 1,300 expressed interest from around the nation. 225 applications were received, $444 million in demand for the Regional Sustainable Planning Grant Program. And we had a 20% success rate. So about 1 in every 5 of those applications actually got awarded. On the challenge planning grant side, we did have some barriers to overcome in doing this joint planning effort. It took some time, but it worked. Okay, the first time that's been done, 2 federal agencies working together. So in the challenge planning grant arena, that's DOT and HUD together, more than 1,000 pre-applications, 583 completed applications. Every state in the nation was represented in the competition. 1.28 billion in demand dollars in demand for the overall program. That was a little lower success rate. The dollars were a little less than the regional planning grant, but that was almost an 11% success rate. Nevertheless, I think a great undertaking. Now let me share with you this particular slide, and this is a representation of not just the HUD regional planning grants, not only the HUD DOT grants, but also the DOT Tiger II capital grants, the DOT Tiger II planning grants, the FTA livability and alternatives analysis grants, and the EPA Sustainable Communities Technical Assistance Brownfield grants that Lynn just mentioned a bit ago. These are the areas around the country where, in either directly or in collaboration, over $773 million of investments from these 3 federal agencies made around the country. You can get a good snapshot of how important this activity has been in job generation, local public investment that's leveraging other private investment, as well as job retention. I think these are impressive results, but also the regional sustainable planning grants have been represented now in 45 metropolitan regions around the country. 10 of those are the 25 largest metropolitan areas in the nation, and 80 million residents, U.S. citizens, are living in these jurisdictions that receive the regional planning grant. 13 regions from small communities and rural places received the awards. There were 6 consortia led by nonprofit organizations. I know there's a few of you here in the audience today that were recipients as part of those local consortiums. 3 regions were driven by tribal leadership, so our Native American communities did participate successfully as well. $120 million in co-investment from partners was leveraged by this federal investment. And 29 regions achieved preferred sustainability status. I'll come back to that in a moment. The challenge grants, 42 communities received challenge or the combination grants. Of those, 10 grants awarded to small communities in rural places around the nation. 27 grantees will recommend zoning or building code changes as part of receiving their these awards. $48 million in co-investment from partners have leveraged the challenge grant opportunity. Again, the combination HUD and DOT Tiger II dollars. Now, on the sustainability, preferred sustainability front, this was part of the original NOFA. As I mentioned, many of the applicants didn't get awarded. Frankly, a lot more dollar demand than we actually have resources for. So this was a very competitive process. But part of the outcome of that had always been designed that those unsuccessful grantees, or potential applicants, they're not grantees yet, would receive a preferred sustainability status designation. And what this does through the HUD competitive grant process on many other grant programs, such as our brownfield programs, our public housing programs as choice neighborhoods, are examples of our place-based competitive grants. If a a member of that consortium or that particular applicant actually is going to apply for a subsequent grant from HUD, they are getting an additional 2 points automatic on their application as it's being evaluated. In addition, they also become candidates for the capacity building needs to support some of their planning and activities as they need to become more competitive for future regional sustainability planning grants and some of the other grants that I think the federal government will also be making available in general in the sustainable area. So that was one of the benefited outcomes. What this map of the U.S. Demonstrates is the area where the preferred sustainability status has been designated. So this kind of gives you a snapshot of perhaps where future awards could be placed, could be coming in the future, because I'm certain many of these applicants who are unsuccessful are going to come forward to provide that perhaps a little bit more success in going forward. Now quickly, let me just talk a little bit about the partnership. Now that was the HUD's side of the partnership. But more specifically with the three entities coming together, our combined efforts in grant application process, we involve all subject matter experts from EPA, DOT, and HUD in the evaluation process, bringing those entities together. And they weren't all just DC-based people. These were folks from around the country, folks like Shane Brady and her counterparts who are sustainable officers. I participated by following in many of the evaluations. So this was unprecedented, another, I think, example of an accomplishment. I'm happy to say today that all the HUD Sustainable Regional Planning Grant Awards have been executed. They're done. So the potential of having those at risk, I think, has been lowered in terms of the budget debates that are going on now in Congress. So that has been a good attempt. I also understand that the Department of Transportation challenge grants, that side of those awards are close at our heels and being executed. It probably will be done sometime this week. Maybe Terry will say something about that. In addition, DOT and HUD found common ground to revise and reformulate cooperative agreements, that instrument that those of you in local government maybe dread, but you know you've got to have that executed before you can really spend federal money. Now, state, city, county, tribal, and nonprofit organizations can use this updated form. DOT and HUD work together to resolve the duplication and to help grantees save their time so they could submit the same for both agencies. Doesn't sound like maybe a big accomplishment, but when you work in the federal government, it's major. The federal partnership is able to proactively overcome barriers together. As Lynn indicated, there's constant communication and connection now among these three agencies. Not just at the DC level, but at my level. There's a local regional partnership, and you see folks here in the room that are active in that regard. So the regional offices get together within each respective region of the country as well. You know, in many ways it's been said that the federal agencies working together is difficult. In fact, it's been described as asking consenting adults to perform an unnatural act. And in many ways, if we were able to overcome that, that has been a major success. And I think that could go forward regardless of the budget circumstances, because I think in the long run, that's just making government work better for you. Also, we now have in the Office of Sustainable Housing and Communities, in our Region 8 staff, we've committed staff time and expertise to connect all HUD sustainable officers to routinely meet and collaborate on projects across the nation. So it's not just folks in our Region 8. I have 5 or 6 of those working on these sustainable community efforts and now working with these grants in our respective regions. They're talking to their counterparts in other regions around the country as well. We've also initiated a pilot project on a newly developed website that shows step-by-step planning documents, data collection, implementation lists, and progress reports by and for our grantees, consultants, and partners. And I hope that entities like yours and your local ties to your organizations can have access to that kind of information as we go forward. Also, the federal partnership of HUD, EPA, and DOT has now expanded. It's not, as Lynn indicated, I might say we're going steady with USDA. I think we've gone beyond dating, but we're bringing the USDA Rural Development, Health and Human Services, and the Department of Energy into this collaborative effort to join forces things that have happened in the last year as a result of the federal partnership on sustainable communities. In the brownfield area, there's been a policy change. Policy revisions now ease the path for private developers who are seeking FHA insurance for multifamily housing on brownfield sites. We've been able to make it easier to reuse these sites, which frankly are often most suited for multifamily development, particularly that becomes more affordable. We also have used a HUD Section 3, and that's HUD speak. I wasn't exactly sure what that was when I began this position, but it's the federal law that governs our requirements to ensure federal dollars issued by HUD are impacting low and moderate income individuals. So on a case-by-case basis, FHWA, Federal Highways, has adopted HUD's contracting requirements to ensure that that's being considered in the local hiring process as it relates to highway projects. Now, you may be asking, what about the future? What about? Is this going to continue? The sustainable planning and implementation grants going to continue to be on the horizon? Well, Secretary Donovan a couple of weeks ago unveiled the 2012 budget. And certainly it has been proposed that an additional $150 million will be available in the 2012 budget for our regional sustainable planning efforts. I can't talk too much about the 2011 because I don't know. Other than we have just 2 more weeks on the continuing resolution, there's been no signs that the sustainable planning efforts are going to be discontinued. So in closing, when I'm told to stop, let me just give 2 final sentences. President Obama, Secretary Donovan, and I are committed to providing localities such as yours the tools they need to make the strategic investments that ensure the economic future of this country. I think regional sustainable planning is here